Yes, guys, welcome back to the Instant Reaction. Arsenal 1, Brighton 1 at the Amex. Go on.
No, mate, I'm fuming. I'm fuming about just what we've been able to do. I don't really know how to process it, but it just seems as though the team looks shot physically. And I hate coming here to talk about things that aren't in our control, to be honest with you. I really hate talking about it. It takes away from the game, and I'm really, really frustrated with it. And, on one hand, people are going to bemoan how much open play XG you've had across 77 minutes when you've only generated about 0.71. Did we generate the chances to win? But, you're going in with the context that this team had a horrible bug coming into it. The lineup was very clear. What we could do was what we put out. And it was a case of, let's get in there. It's going to be scrappy, and you want to walk away with a 1-0 kind of victory. And when you're battling up against something that, for me, I just don't know how to contextualize that penalty, especially with what happens 10 minutes later. Or not 10 minutes later, but 15 to 20 minutes later. I don't understand it. I'm sat there and I'm just thinking to myself, between Martin Odegaard and between Kai Havertz, I was hoping that Kai Havertz would be the one that would be able to step up in terms of the injury, because we were looking for more of a Kai Havertz player in that moment than Martin Odegaard. And I think fundamentally you're looking at a team that was just shot physically, just absolutely shot. And I'm frustrated that we didn't use the Thomas Partey to Martinelli connection enough, especially after the goal. Thomas Partey, I thought, had a difficult game in general. And Jorginho, really shocking game as well. Declan Rice, I thought, had a really, really good game. And he did a lot of running for the team, and I think he was one of the main shining lights for me. But other than that, I get so angry because now I'm sitting there and I'm going back to all the what ifs and the really half chances in the match. And I'm sat there saying, yet again, I'm talking about a 50-50 call. Yet again, we're talking, how many points has it attributed to this season? If you want to go in the minutiae, I feel as though that you're looking more to give that call than you get it. And the team itself, when you're having that many players out, we've got over four starting players out. I'm sorry, it's not gonna lead to a very cohesive performance. So I was expecting a nitty-gritty kind of performance, but I just felt like we didn't do enough after the goal to threaten at all. It was really, really stagnant, and that's what frustrated me quite a bit.
No one. So don't even bother commenting. Is saying Arsenal have been brilliant or there's no issues with us at all. So if anyone comments this after what I'm about to say, you're just not listening. But it is not. At what point are we going to get something go our way? The fixtures haven't gone our way. The injuries haven't gone our way. The finishing luck hasn't gone our way. The refereeing hasn't gone our way. The suspensions haven't gone our way. The form hasn't gone our way. The timing of games hasn't gone. I'm not saying there's things that we and the natural response. Well, there's excuses. No, if your best players are out, and I say this, and we do these straight after the game. I think I'm going to back this, and I want to come back to it maybe on the pod tomorrow and see if I still feel this way. I think that is the worst refereeing decision I can ever remember, and I'm being serious. And I want to come back to that tomorrow because I want to know if that's just heat at the moment. I think that's the worst refereeing decision I can remember seeing, certainly against us. That is a horrendous decision, and so yes, of course, there's stuff we can do better. Of course, there is in this game. You mentioned a few of those things. I thought Jorginho was poor. I thought the way we constructed the midfield. We'll come to some tactical stuff that we can come to. But at what point is that luck variance gonna flip this season? At what point? At what point does it hit Liverpool? At what point do you know what I mean? So like, as much as I'm frustrated in what we did, it just feels like nothing. At what point? I said this on the recent instant reaction. The feeling I miss in football is getting away with it. It's not feeling like we've had to get blood out of a stone. That is what this Arsenal team feels like. It feels like we have to work 50 times harder than any other team to get anything, and we do everything right, and we just get over the line. Whereas it feels like I watch other teams and they concede 15, but they score 60. So it doesn't matter.
Mate, you say that, and we're sitting there. Who's out? Like I get what you're saying, and I completely agree with what you're saying. But do teams like Liverpool do that with Mohamed Salah out, who's got 78% of their goals and assist contributions this season?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
And you know, it kind of, the only thing that I want to focus on that's in our control is our reaction to the goal. And from that moment on, we didn't look like scoring. That for me was within our control, something that was poor. I felt the Thomas Partey pass in behind Brighton, which had space for Martinelli to attack out to in, was not exploited. That was something after the change we needed to overload. We needed to focus on that. And, you know, one of my biggest frustration is between Kai Havertz and Martin Odegaard, one of those two was going to come off having been sick. My frustration was, why was that not Kai Havertz and not Martin Odegaard? Martin Odegaard was the one most recently to have lost training. And also, it's just not the game for him. Like, I'm sat there and I'm thinking, we really needed a reference. It was a scrappy game. I thought Anthony Taylor had lost the game far beyond the penalty call. The idea that, you know, some of the fouls and the inconsistency, it was a touchy game. I was messaging in group chats. I'm worried. I don't like the way that this game is going from a reffing perspective. There's a lot of fouls that are coming. Balaba has gone through the back of our players so many times, didn't receive anything. Veltman had so many times when you just sat there and it was just poor challenge after poor challenge. And I'm sat there saying, okay, either someone's going to get hurt, we're going to get a red card. It's spicy. Something could happen there. And I didn't like leaving it to chance. I felt like there was a lot more space in the Brighton midfield that we could have done a little bit more in. We could have been a little bit more dominant, you know, in the half spaces. And I don't think that, you know, even Jesus offered himself really as much of a reference as we've seen in recent matches. So the team were looking for somebody to have as like an in possession reference ahead of the ball. And of course, with Martin Odegaard out and with Bukayo Saka, you're an uphill battle in that sense. But I mean, it's just gutting. It's just really frustrating because I sit there constantly wanting to talk about the football. My mind is irate with things that have happened outside of the football. And I can't go back to that. You know, the 1-0 score line would have been something that I would have been comfortable defending. It really would have under the circumstances. You've got, who do you have on the bench that can sit there and add a little bit? We didn't have an opportunity. If there were more players there, I could at least critique Mikel and the subs. But I mean, you're asking for people that have just come off a major bug. And I'm sat there saying this was going to be a tough kind of match to get through. We needed it to be one of those days where it wasn't pretty and it's 3 points and you move on. That was kind of the thing. And then when you're battling this kind of thing with battling against variance, battling against all these other things, it kind of just makes me really angry. It really does. And it honestly, I'm at the point where if we get any excuse as far as the window goes without getting an attacking signing, I don't know what else to say. There's no backup to, for me, ownership and the club not going out to get something done. And, you know, it's got to a point where I already felt like the summer was a failure. If you're going to do this, you're actively hurting the team. And it would really hurt, for me, the ambition of the club, personally, if we're not going to do something. Because I don't know how you can sit there with the last couple games and you can just see that the team is dead. It's dead physically. We need something. And yeah, mate, I'm just really frustrated. I'm really trying to collect some of the thoughts here because what I've seen really frustrated. And I just knew we were in for a slog immediately.
Thank you for your super chat, Wonder World. Can't speak. Easy Ollie, talk less, act more. Yep. My neighbors hate me after this game. Anthony Taylor is woke. Yeah. I mean, that decision, it's indefensible. I don't know how any of you in the chat think that's a penalty. I think that is, you will never see that given ever again.
20 minutes later. 20 minutes later. Basically the same challenge. Is it given? Nope. It's not given. Have we seen the restarts? The Reds after a restart? Has that ever been happened again? Nope. I'm not seeing it. So as much as I want to talk the football, as much as I do, mate, I'm sorry, when you start to count up all of the points that have happened so far, mate, it's quantifiable. And I'm getting to the point where it's just, it's getting hard to ignore the conversation. It really is.
This is why I honestly don't care if people think this is an excuse. We spend enough time talking about our football, and we will come back to the tactics and stuff today. But this is why that's the headline of this game. It's like, at what point how can you look at this season and basically go, well, I know that they got a red card at Bournemouth and that resulted in a loss, got a red card at Brighton that resulted in a loss, got a red card, what was the other one, against Man City, and that resulted in a draw. I know that they've been sick and that resulted in dropping points. I know that they've had ridiculous refereeing decisions. I know they had one of the hardest starts I can ever remember in Premier League history. But none of that actually matters. What really matters is a pass in the second half against... Look around. Look, these are things actively affecting what's going on. Can we be better? Of course we can. Talk about it all the time. We talk about that all the time. But that has to be included in our assessment of this. Has to be. Basic says, why are you guys talking about players being out? Talk about how a 17-year-old was the best attacker in this horrid front line. Well, I mean, George has just said it. I mean, we before this game, during the game, after the game, we need a forward. It's not a debate. It's not a question. George and I have been talking about that. When do you reckon we started talking about Arsenal needing a forward? Like a date?
I mean, I've been talking about it at least with you since I started before the channel, when we started talking about
probably
stuff.
Yeah, me and George met probably like January 23. That we were talking about it then. So if you don't think we talk about it, then fair enough. Says Clive, baby guys. Honestly, we have a top 4 or 5 attack. We need more. Yeah, I completely agree. It bears out in the numbers. You can see that we are statistically, and this is another thing, we're statistically the best defense in the league. We probably still are. I can't remember a massive Brighton chance, but the XGA and all that stuff that I can't bother to go into now. But if you look at our attacking numbers, they are all 4th or 5th best in the league. That's what it is. It says, this is what you get when you have a manager obsessed with the statistical fine margins. I'm really upset with Arteta. Gambled nothing today. I mean, I kind of agree with this, George, but also I look at the bench and I'm like, I don't know what he could have done changes wise. I think there's a couple of things, maybe what you're talking about with Partey, but
well, it's only for me, the only thing that I could look at is the Havertz move as opposed to Martin Odegaard. Again, both of those were decisions that you're basically asking players who weren't well, didn't train, to come on. And, between that, like, who are you going to bemoan? I mean, I don't have the players in front of me, so I can't tell you, is Kai Havertz worse than Martin Odegaard? I don't know. I just know that would have been a Kai Havertz game, not a Martin Odegaard game. And from as a whole, I think the Partey pass to Martinelli was the way that I found a way in. Like, that for me was where I saw us breaking through. I thought Trossard had a difficult game, generally speaking. So I thought attacking through the left was not going to be working. So yeah, mate, like, I'm frustrated at some things that we didn't do. And again, I maintain since the goal, we didn't gamble. We didn't really look threatening in any capacity. I mean, I say that the free kick was an open sitter by Mikel
Thomas
Marino.
Partey, man, bro.
Between the two,
but Thomas Partey does that too much. In those sorts of games, he misses so many chances. It really frustrates me.
Yeah, and so what am I going to do? I'm going to bemoan somebody that's clearly been ill for not doing enough. Like, I don't know what else to say at that point. And I just felt that pass was not something that we did near well enough, or with at all any consistency, because I just felt that Brighton had spaces both in the half space, but our 8s were shot. There was no legs to carry through the middle of the park. Look, mate, I hate to keep going back on it, but one of the biggest mistakes this season, I maintain, was getting rid of Emile Smith-Rowe and Fabio Vieira and not replacing them in the squad. Beyond the talent debates, not replacing that type of profile in the squad was a major miss. In addition to kind of the attacking misses that we've done with Sterling, Those were two things that we needed to do. And that's why it doesn't, for me, surprise me when I look at Cunha, I look at, potentially Dani Olmo. There's two holes that I see Arsenal looking at and what I think we need. And yeah, that was definitely something that I was just really frustrated with, as far as our intent in the game. Jorginho didn't have a good game. I thought Declan Rice was the only one that, for me, and I think Miguel Merino had moments, like it was weird. For the goal, he was brilliant. And then he had this weird thing where he was incredibly slow in build-up in terms of turning, and especially towards his right. He's really, really slow at that. And then when he's higher up the pitch, he releases quickly, like for the goal. I thought Calafiori had a good game. Small margins there. Like, he had a very good game for me. Him and Declan Rice were my top two. You could switch between man of the match for Arsenal, but those two were really my positive lights. But other than that, it looked like a team that was ill. I don't know what else to say. It looked like a team that had a bug, and they did.
Yeah. I think the only things that maybe I'd add to it, I thought the construction of the midfield wasn't right. I don't think Jorginho ever would have played this game if we had more players in. So to some degree, it's not even maybe worth a conversation. But because he was there, we had too many ball to feet players in that situation. Jesus was dropping in, Marino was collapsing in, Calafiori was collapsing in, Partey's collapsing in. When we won the ball back, the reason I think it became a scrap is because everyone wanted the ball rather than runners, and Jesus was dropping in, actually pulling Van Hecker out really well, and we had no runners in behind. No one's fault. Martinelli wasn't on the pitch, so that wasn't working. I felt we weren't finding the wide areas quick enough in build-up. I felt that in certain aspects of the game, I think you're right in terms of the build-up variation. And actually, Brighton did really well in terms of pinning our fullbacks. But again, if you have we're not even talking about this if we don't see one of the worst decisions I've ever seen in my life. So it's just so annoying. Let's have a look at we'll come back to the super chats. Thank you guys so much. We'll just have a look at the stats. From Scott Willis. I think the XG is quite heavily in Brighton's favour. Okay, here we are. Let me just bring up from Scott. 1.9 expected goals for Brighton to Arsenal's 1, 11 shots to our 8, 4 shots on target to our 2, 7 open play shots to our 5, slightly higher possession for us, passes completed slightly higher, more final third entries for us, more expected threat created, higher deep touches for us, higher zone 14 touches, which I think tells a story of a game, a story of maybe a team in Brighton who are a bit more efficient when they're in front of goal, versus us who maybe were slightly more on top, maybe. You can argue that. There's the running XG. There's the goal. Obviously, the penalty jumps that up for Brighton, but then I think if you ignore that penalty, I don't think they created anything massively. Not saying we did either, but I think probably a little bit more. There we are. There's the shot map. Yep, not much to look at there. But we won on field till woohoo! Not even field tilt can cheer me up today, George. That is how bad that was. Mafio, what do we do to the refs? That's 9 points they lost us this season already in 20 games. This is kind of pushing me to stop watching football. Corruption. Well, whether it's corruption is another debate, but certainly they've lost us a number of points this season with absolutely insane decisions. Insane. I don't know how that can't be in your assessment of the season. I'm not. Two things can be true at the same time. I keep repeating myself. We weren't good enough. No one's saying we were, but it's also true. This is also absolutely a fact. O'Malley says, can't even blame Martinelli anymore. He is who he is. It's on the club at this point. We need ball carriers. Do you know what's funny about this? I was actually talking about this week. I actually don't think it's a case that we lack ball carriers. We maybe do one or two. But if you look at our squad, we've got Rice, we've got Calafiori, we've got Miles, we've got Timber. It's the usage of the carry, when we carry, how we carry, the freedom to carry. I don't actually think it is the carrying itself.
I hate being that guy, but that's the whole point of transitional inevitability. Yeah. It's about the efficiency in transition. The amount of times that we make the correct decision in transition has been something that I've been screaming about for months. And I still personally don't believe we have the acceleration over large yards, like the amount of what I call dynamic running on the outside. Like, I don't think we have enough of that. I mean, we've got a really injured. Yeah, like we've got an injured one in Ben White, so it's a big problem. We've got Bukayo Saka out. It's a big problem. you have those in, it helps. But I think just generally speaking, we don't have enough instances where I feel both sides have dynamic running on the outside. For God's sakes, even today, we've got Declan Rice, who he did a phenomenal job, but Declan Rice was in the Henderson role. We don't want him doing that, but that's what we had to do in order to create some kind of, I don't know, some kind of support for Ethan, who I thought, did his best and took his goal really well. But as far as kind of keeping the ball, he had a difficult night. Not even going to talk too much about him. I mean, he's the last person you talk about when you're in this situation. But mate, it was really frustrating. I think the one person that I'm really annoyed with in particular is Trossard. I know it's a difficult match with all the history that you've got with Brighton and with everything. It was clear that he was trying out there, but really frustrates me when you're in these situations, your experience needs to step up. When you're in this point where you're injured, you don't have your best players, and the players that you do talk about, like Trossard, who's experienced and has come in and proven himself to be very useful. I can't accept that kind of a performance for me from him when the team is looking for some help. And I think that's maybe the biggest issue for me. I look at the collection of the attack. Not only do we not have enough quality or quantity of attackers, I look at the people that we do have, and I maintain the Jesus, Sterling, Trossard trio. We don't generate enough football from those amount of wages, squad space, and positions. 3 out of the 6 of our attackers, for me, don't consistently generate enough football for the football club. And that's already ignoring kind of the idea that we need more. So we need more, but even of those that we have, there's only maybe 2 to 3 that potentially kind of contribute consistently enough for us. So it's just really frustrating.
Yeah, and he had some moments where he had a moment of separation and just couldn't even get it on target, which I just think is unforgivable at that point. Leonardo, calendar year champs. I know we can do it again. Yep. Thank you for super chat. Says, Saliba gets a touch, by the way. Shocking. I mean, yeah, just also on this, even if we, I'll be polite. Even if we disagree on that being a mental decision, do you want that to be a foul in the Premier League? Do you want that to be what is given as a penalty? Just answer that. And that's a different question, but there you go. I called it. Jesus again. Ghost Trossard not doing S. We need attackers like Brighton front three is better than ours, and they cost what, 70 million. If we score a penalty, wouldn't matter. This club is joke. I do think one thing that Brighton do. I mean, obviously, I'm looking at Carlos Baleba today, mate. Jesus Christ, what a player!
How annoying is it that they continuously do it?
They are. I don't know how they do that. It is. And Bournemouth will get better at it, but Brighton are still kings. But yeah, it's absolutely insane. And the one thing I think they prioritize all over is how, I think, especially Herzl as well, is how physical those guys are. And that's why, like, especially on a day like today, you were talking about earlier, you need a Havertz. You can't have a Jorginho in that game. That's just like, it's like if you could, that's probably one of the last games I would have picked Jorginho in a season out of 38 games, maybe the bottom 5, like, honestly, against that midfield. So, anyway. The worst Arsenal team of all time, 2020, had a better attack than the start chasing Arsenal. My God. I think what it had is a more efficient star. That's what it had, which makes us feel like it was better. But honestly, I know people will think this is copium. This team attacks in a much better way in terms of switching points of the attack, in terms of creating sort of threatening situations which we could capitalize from. But because we have such inefficient attackers, like, if you look at, there was a moment where Trossard is free in the box and just skies it. And then we're not talking about efficiency. We're not talking about Aubameyang. We're not looking back at Pepe, are we? Who also, don't do anything out of possession. So, K-Stacks, the amount of turnovers we had, and this geezer saying we're not doing much in January. I don't want to hear it. Summer window was 2 out of 10. Liverpool's title to lose. I think, for me, that last sentence is basically what I feel this is now. I think before I felt we have a bit of control. Now I just think it's basically down to Liverpool. I think this is I will now say this is Liverpool's title to lose. We're still only one game over halfway through the season. There's still no team who have ever done what Liverpool are threatening to do through the rest of the season. If they do it, then fair enough. I'm not saying they won't. I don't think they will, but I'm not saying they won't. But let's see. It's basically what I'm saying. But like, it is theirs to lose now, I think, and that is incredibly tough. Obviously, we can still have a good season in the cup competitions. We're still in a number of different scenarios around there, but yeah, I think it is theirs to lose. So just rattling through the super chats. So many passengers on our attack. Would swap Vieira for Martinelli right now. We need someone who can give us a moment on such a day. Again, the M word, George. It's back again. Nathan Piper, Mourinho and Havertz's impact on the team is starting to have parallels, both giving 50% of what their position requires and failing to initiate the GA. Yeah, Mourinho is a bit stiff, but I actually thought he had quite a good game, to be honest.
Tough one. I don't know if like he was the definition for me of that Gattuso mean. Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. He's good for the goal. And then like the moments that I critique, like I feel that Mourinho struggled for me in build up, and he's really slow in build up. But then when he's higher up, he's able to release. Like that goal shows it's a quick release and it's a smart release, but he doesn't do that enough. He's really slow in build up, which I don't understand. So he was good in moments, but also pretty bad in moments as well for me. It's just frustrating. Like I've thought about this quite a bit. I don't think that your star DM can be your best midfielder. That's not a good sign. And I look at Declan Rice, and he is that right now. And I think, again, I don't want to hammer him, but Martin Odegaard hasn't been playing well for weeks. And we've joking about the baby, but it's been a consistent enough issue with Saka out. We needed him to be good. And Mourinho, I think, has played now 90 minutes since the turn of the year, maybe twice. So like it's good, but it's not enough. And yeah, there's issues both in attack and in midfield, essentially. Yeah. And I think what I'm really focused on is getting people back fit, because again, I can't help but look. Even if I found that Timber was part of this game, I don't feel very confident that we win, personally. And I hate to say this, it's not because, I want to cause player wars, but I really think this team misses Ben White. And I said a post earlier on X, if we're going to survive without Saka, Ben White becomes one of the most important players in the football club. Creating that stretch on the outside, because we are assuming that hopefully Calafiori and Mourinho can maintain their fitness. So we've got something along the left, but I really think down the right-hand side, we really need to make sure that we've got somebody that's consistently able to stretch, to stay wide. And do those things. So I just think until we can get him back fit, that right-hand side will struggle. And it'll be a case of platforming the left. And we all know that the left has been something that we need to develop chemistry and relationships for. But unless you're able to attack with both sides of the pitch and you're not pinned to a particular side, I think you're going to struggle to create enough quality and quantity chances. And that's what we need to do.
Reminder that João Pedro should have been suspended for the game anyway, and that Matt O'Reilly rugby tackled Gabriel in the first half, and Taylor completely ignored it. Yup. I think as well, because I know you need to shift. You haven't got much time, so we need to wrap up in a second. But this is it's always going to feel like this when we're this far behind Liverpool. Like, realistically, if you think about what happened in that game, no one's saying it's a good game, but in terms of the incident that happened in that game with that penalty and how that played out with no Havertz, no Saka, no White, nothing on the bench, Timber out, Partey at right back, Jorginho shouldn't have been playing, 17-year-old on the right. If you go through that, it's in context. No one wants to draw, but there's worse draws than going away to Brighton and drawing like that. But it feels so hard because of what's happened before and because of where we are in the league. And that's the hard part. It's the context. And it makes it really, really hard to feel particularly positive, to be honest.
It's because of the damage that's happened earlier in the season. And it's kind of like something that, we've mentioned on the pod so many times, it's context doesn't matter with what position you're in. And that's really the truth of it. Context, I think, for a lot of people is out the window, and it doesn't matter because we're at the point where it was trophy or bust for a lot of people. And it was for a lot of people, and I don't want to speak for other people, but I think a lot of people thought once Rodri is out, you're looking at it as this is Arsenal's title. And, I think from that, if you want to just be black and white, they were the favorites for me. Absolutely. I mean, we walked into the season assuming that was the quality difference between the three teams. I maintain that there's going to be a lot of context thrown out once we start to track the amount of injured players and the minutes associated with that. It's going to be significant, but the context doesn't matter when you've got 5 years of a manager that promised you trophies in those 5 years. And that's kind of the point of the burnout. And that's the kind of frustration that I think a lot of people are having, and the projections and all of that. So as far as I'm concerned right now, I'm kind of with you where I feel that things are out of our hands. And I'm more along the sense of I want to get people fit and I want to return to good play. I've maintained that. This isn't something that, I felt like was a game, although I'm really annoyed, it's one of those explainable games. It wasn't in the Everton camp. It wasn't in those things. So I'm sat there understanding it, but for me, I'm focused on the next game, the next win, and trying to make sure that you're fixing some of the things that we saw. And mainly that's getting people back fit. I don't think that you put out that 11 and you're going to do well this season in general. So I'm more concerned about that.
We looked absolutely knackered. And we need fresh impetus in many ways. But I swear down, if we do a release clause on January the 31st, I will drive to America myself. You can't even drive, but I will find a way. Right. Thank you for being here. Sorry, this wasn't particularly positive. Look, as we say all the time, this season can still be positive without the league. We're still in 3 competitions, and there's still a way for this season to go well. Ultimately, the league is now in Liverpool's hands, and that's 2 things are true. We've done that to ourselves, and there's an incredible amount of stuff that's gone against us. And how we deal with that is up to us now. We've got to respond. We've got to react. I don't know who we play next. I think it's Newcastle in the Cup on Tuesday. That's going to be a tough one. I think are we at home or away first? I can't remember.
Home with Bruno Guimaraes and Fabian Schär out as well.
Well, that's the copium we all needed to end the show. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, George. Make sure to subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. If you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple, make sure you subscribe as well. Leave us a rating. You can sign up as a patron or a YouTube member if you want to get ad-free content, data pods and youth pods and stuff coming up. Thank you for being here. We're here for half an hour after every single Arsenal game, no matter what the result. Thank you for being here. Thanks for watching. And thanks for keeping it Arsenal.